أن من عرف نفسه أحسن أن يسوسها ومن أحسن أن يسوس نفسه أحسن أن يسوس العالم فيصير من خلفاء الله تعالى المذكورين في قوله تعالى ويستخلفكم في الأرض. You know, one thing, so يستخلفكم في الأرض. So the sixth is, if you know yourself, you will become good at governing the self. You will be good at governing the self. And whoever's good at governing the self then would be good at governing the world. And you will become among the khulafa of God, the vicegerents. That inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I'm putting in the earth a vicegerent to take care of the earth. But if you don't take care of yourself, and that's why the Dhari'ah, which is his other book, the Dhari'ah in Makarim al-Sharia is the means by taking on these noble qualities to become a caliph, the khalifa. This is the maqam that Allah is calling us to. And so he's saying that if you know yourself, you will be able to govern yourself. And if you govern yourself, you can govern the world. If you govern the world, you're amongst the khulafa. يَسْتَخْلِفَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He will put you in the earth. That can mean يَسْتَخْلِفَكُمْ, he replaces you from the people that are before you. So we like the Khalifa, Abu Bakr was Khalifatu Rasulillah. So he was the one who was in place. He stood in place. He was a replacement for the Prophet ﷺ. So that's one of the meanings. But it also means the one who, so Khalafa means to leave behind. Khalfiyah is your background. Khilaf is your difference of opinion. So different backgrounds are going to end up in khilaf. If you don't know how to govern yourselves. In fact, you know, I was reading a book the other day about Robert's Rules of Order. It was very interesting because the man who wrote that book, Herbert Robert, he was an engineer, but he was a deacon at a Baptist church, and he was heading a meeting that got totally out of control, and everybody started yelling, and he didn't have any way of controlling it. So he spent the next 15 years thinking deeply about meetings and how to govern meetings. And so he created Robert's Rules to help people be able to sit together and actually talk with one another. So that's a knowledge. If you're committed to following that, Allah says, تَحْسِبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. You think they're all together, but they're not. They're separate. Their hearts are separate. Why? Because they have no intellect. They don't have intellect. If you had intellect, you'd be united, at least in sitting down to discuss things intelligently. People can't even talk anymore. Look out there. They can't even talk. People can't even sit down. We can't even discuss, is it wise to cut the organs and healthy organs off adolescent children? Is that a wise thing to do? We can't even discuss that. We can't even talk about it. It's just, oh, you're transphobic. No, I'm actually just trying to think about the welfare of the child, because apparently most of these people are resolved by the time they get to 18 or 19 years of old. So shouldn't we wait a little time? Doesn't that make sense, just to wait? We can't talk about it. You're not allowed to talk about it. We can't even talk anymore. That's how bad it is. And so that's what, if you want to be a caliph, you have to work on yourself. You have to do the work. And that's why he begins this with ma'rifat of the soul, if you know that. And then he says that not only will you be khulafa, he says, وَمِنَ الْمُلُوكِ الْمَذْكُورِينَ, you'll be muluk. وَجَعَلَكُمْ مُلُوكًا. And this went when Musa alayhi salam, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ جَعَلَ فِيكُمْ أَنْبِيَاءَ وَجَعَلَكُمْ مُلُوكًا. Moses was told to tell his people, remember, Allah made all these prophets from you, because كَانَ يَسُوسُهُمْ الْأَنْبِيَاء. The Prophet ﷺ said that Banu Israel كَانَ يَسُوسُهُمْ الْأَنْبِيَاء. Every time a prophet would die, God would give them another prophet, and they would govern them. They were governed by prophets. And that's why وَجَعَلَكُمْ مُلُوكًا, because Ibn Abbas said that Bani Israel said that anybody who had a spouse and a house, and a servant was a king. That was a malik. If you had those three things, you were malik. So Allah's امتن عليهم. يعني he's saying, I gave you these blessings. I made you kings. I gave you houses. I gave you spouses. I gave you servants. Where's the gratitude? Where's the gratitude? There's a man from the Muhajirin who came to Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. And he said to him, أَلَسْنَا مِنْ فُقَرَاءِ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ? Aren't we from amongst the poor people of the Muhajirin? He said, أَلَكَ بَيْتٌ تَسْكُنُهُ? Yeah, na'am. Do you have a house you live in? He said, أَلَكَ إِمْرَأَةٌ تُؤْوِي إِلَيْهَا? Do you have a woman that you can go to? He said, na'am. He said, أَلَكَ بَيْتٌ تَسْكُنُهُ? Do you have a house you live in? He said, na'am. He said, إِذَنْ أَنْتَ مِنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ لَسْتَ مِنَ الْفُقَرَاءِ. You're from the rich people. You're not from the poor people. And then he said, عَنْدِي خَادِم. He said, I have a servant. He said, أَنْتَ مَلِك. You're a king. This is the ingratitude of human beings. There's, poor people in America, I swear to God, they're rich in many countries. The poor people in this country, they're rich in many countries. If you go to Mauritania, I can show you real poverty. And those people in Mauritania, because I live with some of the poorest people on the planet, they're much richer than some of the richest people in this country. Much richer. Spiritually, intellectually, in terms emotionally, psycho-emotional states of their minds. But you meet poor people, and I've met one of the beautiful aspects of Islam is one, the Prophet ﷺ chose to be poor, and he did it for the majority of his ummah. He was given the choice to be like Sulaiman, or to be, and he chose to be Nabiyun Abd, like a slave servant, a slave prophet, not a king prophet, because Allah has both. So he chose to be, and he did this desiring for his ummah to see, well, if this is the best of creation, when Aisha brought all the possessions of the Prophet out, it was 2 garments and a bowl that he used to wash with. That was his possession. That's what he left behind. He didn't leave anything behind. It's amazing. And he could have been the richest man in the world, material wealth, but he chose to be poor. But one of the beauties of poverty in the Muslim world, and I'm talking about traditional, I'm not talking about modern Muslim world, because I've seen traditional Muslim places, and I'm not romanticizing or being nostalgic about it. I lived it, I saw it. I saw Gero before there was electricity. It's not some kind of romantic version of what I saw. Those people have dignity with their poverty. They have dignity. And that's the difference. Our poverty does not allow people to be dignified. And that's why it's an ugly poverty. It's a horrible poverty. It doesn't allow people to be dignified. Is it because the poor will always have? This is the nature of dunya. The Marxists tried to eliminate it, and they had to kill millions of people, and they still couldn't do it. All these people are talking about, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Don't believe any of it. They're all liars. Just liars.